The camera flashes were tiny, silent detonations. For 33 years, I had learned to stand perfectly still within the blast radius, in the photography studio, surrounded by the suffocating warmth of my loved ones. I was a statue in an ivory dress, a gown chosen not by me, but for my mother's approval. Kate, a real smile, for heaven's sake. My mother, Elizabeth Harris, didn't look at me as she spoke, her voice a familiar blend of irritation and stage direction. Beside her, my sister Jenny beamed, the picture of effortless perfection. At 28, she was still the cherished daughter, Harvard's valedictorian, the living embodiment of my mother's aspirations. A gentle pressure on my hand anchored me. Michael, my fiancé. He knew the entire sordid history, the scholarships I'd clawed for since I was 15, the systematic draining of my bank accounts, my quiet exile from the family narrative. He was my sanctuary. I was the prologue to a story my mother never wanted to read, the introverted daughter born after she lost the son she'd truly desired. My position as a vice president at an investment bank was a footnote. Jenny was the headline. "That's a lovely photo," the photographer chirped. I offered a quiet nod. Lovely. The word felt like ash. But today, the lovely facade would burn. I could feel the weight of the red folder in my suit's inner pocket, a counterweight to the delicate lace of my wedding dress. Inside was a curated collection of truths, records of $10 million embezzled, documents with my forged signature, the blueprint of my mother's betrayal. Michael's legal mind had made it irrefutable. From the studio window, the Boston skyline glittered, a kingdom my mother ruled from her throne at Harris Properties. I caught my reflection in the glass, a woman no longer willing to be a ghost in her own life. "Well, let's start greeting the guests," Mother announced. Already shifting into her role as the city's premier hostess, she moved with a practiced grace, Jenny trailing in her wake. Her eyes flicked to me, and for a fleeting second, I saw the old guilt, quickly smothered by her towering self-interest. I allowed myself a faint, private smile. Soon. The grand ballroom of the Boston Ritz-Carlton was a masterpiece of my mother's taste. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting the floor with rainbows. A tower of champagne glasses shimmered, an ephemeral monument, much like the illusion of our family. "Harris family, for your photo," the photographer called. Mother glided into position, a vision in white silk, as if this were her wedding day. Jenny, in a specially commissioned mauve gown, stood beside her, the recipient of all the admiring glances. I was the afterthought. "Kate, move closer," Mother commanded, her voice a silken whip. I complied, my dress train whispering across the floor. With each flash, she maneuvered Jenny to the center. "Look at our genius doctor," she boasted to a nearby cluster of relatives, soon to be department head at Boston General. A ripple of discomfort went through the groom's family. Michael's mother met my gaze, her frown a silent promise of support. In the crowd, Boston's elite circled my mother, drawn by the scent of her new real estate project, a venture funded by leveraging my stolen inheritance. "Beth, what a magnificent wedding," gushed the publisher's wife from the Boston Globe. "It's like a royal wedding." Mother's smile was one of pure triumph. She didn't know her kingdom was built on a fault line, and I was about to trigger the quake. The red folder was already in place by the podium. Michael's colleagues from the law firm were strategically positioned. My hand found the small remote in my dress pocket. There was no escape now. "Ready?" Michael's whisper was a warm breath against my ear. I took a deep, steadying breath. "Yes, perfect." Distinguished guests. My mother's voice, amplified and assured, filled the ballroom. She held her champagne glass aloft, a queen toasting her own reign. "Thank you for joining us today to celebrate my beloved daughter." Her gaze, warm and adoring, settled not on me, but on Jenny. I must introduce my pride, my joy, my daughter, Jennifer Harris. The air in the room grew thick. This was more than a slight. It was a public execution of my place in this family. "Jenny, you are my everything," she continued, her voice dripping with pride. "And as a gift, I am giving you a luxury apartment in Beverly Hills, with a panoramic view of the Pacific." A stunned silence descended, broken only by the sound of my chair sliding back as I stood. "I have a special present, too, Mother." Her face tightened. She heard the finality in my tone. "Kate, don't," she hissed. panic edging into her voice. It was too late. I pressed the button. The massive screen behind her glowed to life. This is my wedding gift to this family. The first document was a scan of my bank passbook from when I was 15. A $5 million scholarship deposit. Vanished the next day. This is my life, I said, my voice clear and cold as ice. Forged signatures, fraudulent transfers, $10 million, embezzled. These are lies. Mother's voice was a shattered vase, sharp and broken. I can explain. You've had 20 years to explain, I replied, the calm at the center of the storm. You explained it with every tuition bill of mine you refused to pay, and every one of Jenny's that you stole from my account to cover. The room was a tomb. The governor looked away, embarrassed. Media guests had their phones out, recording everything. I didn't know, Jenny whispered, her face pale. Didn't you? I asked, my gaze unwavering. Your Harvard tuition was a family obligation, paid from an account with my name on it. As my mother swayed, her champagne glass shattering on the floor, the main doors opened. Elizabeth Harris? The FBI agents moved with quiet authority. We have a warrant for your arrest. The color drained from her face, leaving a mask of stark terror. Michael rose beside me, his voice the steady, commanding tone of a top litigator. This is not a family dispute, he informed the stunned audience. It is a case of systematic fraud, embezzlement, and document forgery. The champagne tower caught the light, its bubbles rising like the ghosts of my mother's lies. They had sparkled so brightly, only to pop and vanish into nothing. For the first time in 33 years, I was finally, completely, free. The word, guilty, hung in the sterile air of the Boston federal courtroom, a stark confession that shattered a lifetime of illusions. Elizabeth Harris, the former queen of Boston society, stood diminished in a plain navy suit, a ghost of the woman who once commanded rooms in silk and diamonds. The media's cameras, which had once sought her out for her glamour, now coldly documented her downfall. I plead guilty. A collective gasp rippled through the public gallery. The empire of Harris Properties was built on a foundation of forged documents and stolen futures, and its architect was finally admitting to the cracks. As the prosecutor outlined the case, the true scale of the horror unfolded. My personal testimony was merely the key that unlocked the vault. Inside was a treasure of suffering, plundered from dozens of others. The screen displayed a mosaic of misery, young entrepreneurs stripped of their companies, students trapped in loan shark schemes disguised as scholarships, single mothers who had trusted a benefactress only to be bled dry. The total damages amounted to a staggering $50 million. The defendant didn't just steal money, the prosecutor stated, his voice cutting through the hushed room. She stole potential, ambition, and hope. The most damning evidence was the emails she had sent to my sister, Jenny, meticulously detailing her methods of fraud, a poisoned inheritance, an attempt to groom a successor in her dark arts. From the witness stand, Jenny's voice was a broken whisper as she confirmed their authenticity. Her world, built on our mother's favoritism, had proven to be just another one of her constructions, and it had collapsed just as completely. Her medical license suspended, she now found a purer purpose volunteering at a rural clinic, seeking absolution in service. The sentence was severe, 15 years in prison, the forfeiture of all assets, and the court ordered establishment of a victim relief fund. As the judge's gavel fell, it felt less like an ending and more like a genesis. In the 2 years that followed, the Harris case became a catalyst for change. The public outrage crystallized into the Financial Abuse Prevention Act, dubbed the Harris Law, which I championed from a witness chair in a congressional hearing. Financial abuse is violence with a smile, I testified, my voice steady. The chains are made of manipulated love and enforced obligation. We are here today to break those chains. The movement grew into a foundation, then a national network. My investment firm's boardroom became a staging ground for a different kind of deal, one that traded awareness for justice. Michael's law firm provided the legal backbone, and together we built a sanctuary for the broken. One evening, as I prepared for another lecture tour, Michael handed me a letter. The handwriting was familiar, yet softer, devoid of its former sharpness. Kate, I will not insult you by asking for forgiveness. I write only to say that I see you. I see the foundation you built from the ruins I created. And I read about the lives you are saving. In a place devoid of pride, a strange, quiet pride for you manages to exist. Your courage has become a monument, while my greed has become a cautionary tale. Perhaps that is the only justice that truly matters. Mother. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I would not reply. Not yet. But for the first time, the words didn't feel like a weapon. They felt like a closing of a ledger. Meanwhile, in a small Maine town, my sister had found her own redemption. No longer the perfect daughter. She was simply the doctor. Her worth measured in the health of a fisherman's child or the gratitude of an elderly patient. Her monthly letters to me were no longer about guilt, but about discovery. I think I finally understand. Her last one read, "What you meant about a life that is truly your own." And my mother? The woman who once breakfasted on ambition now ate a modest meal in a correctional facility, participating in a rehabilitation program that paired psychological counseling with community service. The queen was gone. In her place was just another inmate, learning the weight of a conscience she had long suppressed. As I looked out my office window at the Boston skyline bathed in the warm light of sunset, Michael came to stand beside me. "Another long day?" he asked, his hand finding mine. "Another day that mattered," I replied. The cityscape was the same, but the woman looking at it was entirely new. The silence had been broken, and in its place was a chorus of voices, growing stronger every day, ensuring that no one would ever have to wear a mask of perfection again. The empire of illusions had fallen, and from its ashes, we had all built something real.